How you doing, guys and girls? This is Adam, the data guy here again. I'm sitting there with a good friend of mine, Paul Gouldring, who is division principal over in Lawrence Harvey, and he has kindly agreed to do a recording just to give us a few tips and tricks if you're between two jobs. Yeah. So basically, what are your top tips when you're in between two jobs, Paul?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam. So I think the first point we wanted to discuss, and the first point I think is probably the most obvious one, is around the CV and what you should and shouldn't really be doing in it. I guess for me, there's two caveats before I go into this. Number one being CVs are really subjective. So what one person might like, another person will potentially hate. So it's difficult to get a CV that will please everyone. And the second point is probably around the fact that I recruit contractors, so my sort of assessment of CVs is largely based around placing contractors rather than permanent members of staff. So again, there may be some discrepancies between that. I think for me, it's important when you're writing your CV to really remember that clients are probably going to get a lot of CVs for each job, so you want to be able to hold their attention for long enough for them to read beyond the first couple of lines. You have to make it quite clear what you are, what you do, what you bring to the organisation as quickly as you can. I think that's my biggest tip whenever I'm talking to people, is just grab their attention in the best way you can.
So like a list of skills at the very top. So they're like, oh, well, we're looking for those skills, and then they'll read further.
I think it's important to get that out as quickly as possible. Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to, I mean, this is me being cynical, but I think it's important to avoid cliches like self-starter or, things, words and phrases like that, which they probably read in most CVs, but really get across your mission statement and what you do. What are you dedicated to in the working world? I think that's usually quite key for me to get out, because I think there was a study done, I can't remember exactly what it was, but list and then give them a bit more information. So for me, grabbing attention is a must. I think in terms of the formatting, I think you want it to be really easy to read. You've got to have it broken down into sections quite simply. You want most recent roles preferably on the first page. I think it's quite dangerous to go beyond 3 pages. I think 3 pages for me is the maximum that it should be, really. I mean, again, being cynical, but historically, like, I know most managers probably won't want to read that far, particularly if they have, more than 5 CVs for a role. And I mean, for me, in terms of the content as well, you really want to focus on what are they going to get if they bring you on board. So whether this is for a contract or a permanent member of staff, I always think it's better to list achievements, cost saving, projects delivered, real tangible things that you've done for an organization and you can do for the organization you're applying to join. I think that for me is much more powerful than simply listing like the duties and responsibilities that you've held. If you're a BI developer, rather than saying I did SSIS or I was in charge of writing ETL packages, you're saying something along the lines of, I helped better their ETL package in SSIS to bring the load time down from 10 minutes to 2 minutes, or whatever it might be. Obviously, I'm not massively technical, so that might be completely wrong. But so you're framing it. You're still saying the same things, but you're framing it in a much more sort of actionable way, and you're really saying to the client who you want to join, like, this is what you're going to get if you pay 80 grand a year, or if you pay £600 a day. This is what you're going to get from interviewing and hiring me.